Hello, everybody, and my name is Pip.
And this is Kiki.
Today we're playing Remember 11, The Age of Affinity. Now, we started the prologue, but we messed up the recording, so this will be the second time that we go through the prologue. So we already know that there's two main characters, so we'll be switching between each other since there's a female protagonist and a male protagonist. So we already know when that happens and how to do that. So other than that, though, the prologue is as far as we made it. So the rest of the game we'll be going through blind. So we're going to get started right now. Ready?
I'm ready. I'm a seagull. These were the words uttered by the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova. All alone aboard the former Soviet Union spaceship Vostok 6, floating in the void of space, a place of complete silence and emptiness, with a hollow feeling of isolation upon her. Yet still able to draw the parallel between herself and a seagull to express the liberating feeling of breaking free from everything. I'm a seagull. Such beautiful words. If it were me, I'd never have been able to come up with something so clever. I'd probably try being sarcastic and say that I'm a girl trapped in a cage. Though, if you think about it, would that really be sarcasm? A lonely girl locked away inside a tiny, narrow cage. Right now, I'm somewhere as close to heaven as I'll ever be.
Because she's on a plane.
I get it, thank you. 33,000 feet up in the air. January 11th, the first day. It's a nice cabin.
So nice. For some reason the game pauses a while there. I don't know why. Who's that behind you?
Suddenly, the world around me disappears. Someone from the seat behind me has covered both my eyes with their hands.
Who's that behind you? Who's that behind you? We're just going to make the same decisions we did last time.
Sounds good.
Who, I wonder?
Who could it be?
Who could it be?
I wonder who it is.
Who do you think it is?
No one's traveling with me on this flight. I boarded this plane by myself. I don't have the slightest idea. Judging by the voice, which was still undergoing the changes of puberty, could only be the boy sitting in the seat behind me. The palms that covered my eyes were pretty small. It's useless. I give up. I give up. I raised both of my arms and spun around my wrist playfully.
Are you sure you give up?
Yep.
Well then, I guess I'll just have to tell you. The correct answer was... this dumbass. Kasuda Unicorn!
Turning around, I found, as I had expected, a boy who looked to be about elementary school age. He was leaning over the headrest with an innocent smile. Kusudu Unicorn is what he said. I didn't remember hearing that name anywhere, nor having ever seen his face. I see, Unicorn, is it? That's a cute name.
Thanks. My friends often tease me by calling me Unishiro or Unit Bath, though.
His shyly smiling face was friendly and charming.
Hey, Oni-chan, can I sit next to you? The seat here is free, right?
I took a glance at my wristwatch. There was still a lot of time before we could reach our destination. Come on over. I patted the seat by the window. The boy who had introduced himself as Uni pounced into the seat beside me as suddenly as in a game of musical chairs where the music had stopped. Hey, there was something I was curious about. Do you mind if I ask?
What is it?
When you were singing the Kagome song earlier, you sang Yuaki no Ban Evening Lit by the Dawn, right? If I remember correctly, I think that part should be Tsukio no Ban Evening Lit by the Moonlight.
Evening lit by the moonlight?
Right, because Evening Lit by the Dawn doesn't really make much sense, does it? When it's dawn, the sun rises in the east, and at night, the sun sets in the west, right?
So, is that the way you sang it when you were a kid, Oni-chan?
Yelith said I sang Evening Lit by the Moonlight.
You're just supposed to read it. You don't have to sing it. That's cheap.
Yep.
I
gave a confident nod.
But I think Evening Lit by the Dawn is how it should be.
Uni said so while picking at the chipped nail of one of his fingers.
Because after that, the next lines go, Suri to Kame, Crane and Turtle, Ishiro no Shumen, right behind you, in front of your back, right? Dawn and evening, Crane and Turtle, the back and the front. They're all two things that make up a pair by being the opposite of one another. Light and shadow, yin and yang, male and female, imaginary numbers and real numbers. This whole world is made up of elements that contradict each other, but at the same time need to coexist with one another. I think that it was the Kagome song tries to say. That's why Evening Lit by the Dawn would be much more fitting than Evening Lit by the Moonlight.
I see. I groaned without noticing.
All that being said, my interpretation may not be completely correct. That song still has many mysteries to it.
Mysteries? What kind of mysteries?
Well, let's see. For example, just what does Kagome mean? What is the symbolism behind of the bird within the cage? Why did the crane and the turtle slip? Did they have to slip? And then there's the, who's that behind you?
As he hummed that phrase, Uni took off his glasses. He covered his eyes with his own hands and turned around.
Right now, I can't see anything at all. They say that out of all of our senses, sight is responsible for 8/10 of all the information that we humans gather, you know. That means that right now, I'm only able to feel a mere 2/10 of everything that's occurring around me with my other senses. That remaining 80% is left vague and unclear. I have no way of knowing what Oni-chan's doing behind me right now, or what kind of expression she has on her face. Right now, Oni-chan's existence is one of many unknowns to me. Until I open my eyes and turn around, what's behind me is still undecided.
Just as Junie was able to unsee my face, I was unable to see what kind of expression he had on his. I was only able to see his back. A small back. How old are you, anyway? After a slight pause, I asked him that.
11.
Uni turned around with his eyes still covered. Then he peered at me through his fingers.
Thank goodness that you're here.
His cheeks lift into a broad smile as he laughs. His smile was certainly that of an 11-year-old.
Straining my ears, I could still hear the sound of the wind. Outside, the snow was still blowing violently about. I held my breath as I stood in front of an iron door. Besides the door, a small red light was blinking in the darkness. The card reader that controlled the lock on the door The treacherous red light gave away its location. I put my hand in my pocket and pulled out a single key card. Satori Yukado, 1331-2223-9801. I traced the engraved letters with my fingertip. Yukado Satoru. That is my name. I haven't ever really liked my name that much. I twirled the card in my fingers and spun it around. I inserted it into the reader's slot and let it slide through. The light on the card reader turned green. The lock opened and the door opened just the slightest crack. I pushed it open and stepped into the darkness as if drawn by something. Kokoron is 20, isn't she?
That's what he said right after I had introduced myself. I had told him my name, Foyakua Kokoro, and then had a little chat with him about the place of our destination. However, I hadn't been given any hints or clues that would help him to guess my age like that. How do you know?
Impressed?
Uni threw his head back onto the seat and made a sound with his nose.
Maybe I'm psychic.
Come on, stop playing around and tell me.
Let's see. I can tell you, but in exchange I have a favor to ask.
A favor?
You see, I'm not really good with the zoom. Zoom, there's a part where it goes zoom, right?
Huh?
Well, you know, right? When the plane begins to land, it descends rapidly with a zoom. And there's a point when you feel light, as if gravity disappears.
Well, yes, and...
So, when this plane starts descending...
Looking at me with upturned eyes, Uni continued.
Would you hold my hand?
Unconsciously, I burst out laughing. However, the expression on Uni's face was so serious that making fun of him just didn't seem right. Even though his words at times showed wisdom beyond his years, inside he was still just a child. Well, if that's all it is, then be my guest.
Really?
That being said, there aren't many boys that are allowed to touch me as they please, you know? So, be grateful. I gave his head a little poke, and he blushed as he jumped into my arms. Oh well. So, what's the answer? You're about to tell me you knew my age, right?
How he knew. Yes, well...
When he said that, Uni let go of my sleeve and stretched his arm behind my head.
It's this. This was stuck in Kokoron's hair, so...
In his hand was a fluttering object, which he presented to me. The object Uni was holding between his fingers was... a small white feather, as light and soft as down.
Our section's small, spiraling stairs continued higher and higher up. It felt as if I was walking up the scales of a giant constrictor snake. A constrictor snake which had wrapped itself around a huge column as it desperately tried to strangle it. Its iron scales made sharp, cold sounds as my feet continued on their journey. And David played with his hand as at other times. And there was javelin in Saul's hand. There wasn't. There was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. I didn't think of the words coming out of my mouth as my own. It was as if some spirit was whispering them into my ear. I will smite David, even if he avoided it twice. The entrance I was looking for was near. Thankfully, this constrictor I was making my way up on didn't have a head. Perhaps, before it could finally strangle its prey, its head was cut off. The cogwheels of the clock tower made an eerie noise. Rattle, rattle. It sounded as if a spell was being cast, one to take control over time for all eternity.
A feather?
Yep, a feather.
This was in my hair.
Yes, it was on the back of your head.
I had no idea why a feather would be there.
Kokoron, you didn't take a bath yesterday, did you?
Hey, that's quite rude of you, you know. And for your information, I'm pretty sure I did take a bath yesterday.
That's a lie.
And why would I lie about something like that?
Because Kokoron's eyelids are a little swollen. It's from a lack of sleep, isn't it?
Saying that, Uni took out a mirror from his pocket and placed it right in front of my face.
Right?
Just as Uni had said, my eyelids showed a slight tinge of red. It was true that I didn't get much sleep last night. Last night, I was in a rush to prepare for this trip, and before I could meet her, I wanted to fill my head with as much information as possible. When I finally got to bed, the sky was already growing light. Well, it's a fact that I didn't get much sleep. But how do this and that have anything to do with one another? How is my lack of sleep related to the feather, or to my age for that matter?
Now. Don't rush me. I'll explain everything in order, okay?
Uni snapped the folding mirror shut and slipped it back into his pocket.
First off, let's confirm the date. Today's date is what day of what month and what year?
It's January 11th, 2011, Tuesday.
Okay. Then, what day was it yesterday?
January 10th, Monday, coming of age day.
Yep. Now then, that's where this feather comes in.
Uni said as a feather danced on the palm of his hand.
When girls put on their kimono for the event, they wear shawls over their shoulders too. Of all the materials used to make shawls, the most popular is the feather of the white goose. And so, the feather I'm holding in my right hand right now is most likely... I don't need to say any more, do I?
In other words, I wore a shawl over my kimono when I was attending my coming of age ceremony yesterday. And it was then that my feather came off the shawl and got attached to my hair.
The coming of age ceremony is like a big event where you invite all your friends from elementary school and middle school to meet up, right? Where you find out what your first crush is now. Where you find out that your first crush is now so homely you don't even recognize them. And that the plainest girl in class has become beautiful enough to make you jealous. Anyway, one chance encounter is followed by the next. You learn many surprising things, everyone's emotions get stirred up, and energy fills the air. It's not hard to imagine being swept up by that wildly exciting atmosphere, being carried along on a buoyant mood like that. So, as the ceremony was coming to an end, you went to an after party with another group of close friends. You'd also finally reached the age where you could drink alcohol legally too, right? When the first after party goers, oh my god. When the first after party's over, it's on the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and before you know it, the sun is rising in the eastern sky. The result, not enough sleep, red eyelids, and no time to even take a shower. Kokoron, with the feather still stuck in her hair, was rushing to get on this plane at the last moment. So, what do you think? I got all of it right, didn't I?
Hearing all those statements in such quick succession left me feeling embarrassed long before I fully noticed it myself. Uni's eyes were sparkling and his cheeks were flushed with red. Huh, it's amazing how far you took this wild illusion based on a single feather.
Delusion? This isn't a delusion at all. It's an extremely logical deduction.
I see, so you're quite confident, aren't you?
I guess?
However, that extremely logical deduction is actually, unfortunately, completely wrong.
Huh?
Because I was actually born in February. I had my coming of age ceremony last year. As soon as I said those words, Uni's eyes opened wide, leaving two little dots where his cheerful saucer-like pupils had been before. His mouth was left half open in shock.
That's a lie. Then what about this feather? What about the feather? Why was this feather stuck in your hair?
Who knows?
Who knows, you say?
Well, after all, we are high above the clouds here. It might just be an angel's feather, you know?
An angel?
Murmuring that in wonder, Uni turned to look out the window. His flustered appearance resembled that of a live puppy that had just come face to face with a robot dog and was all the cuter for it. I couldn't help but giggle quietly to myself. My laughs reached Uni's ears, and his neck tensed up.
There's no way angels could exist.
Is that so?
It is.
Well, either way, it's much more romantic than the goose feather explanation, right?
So, to decide whether something is true or not, you just check with yourself to see if it's romantic or not. And if you like what you end up with, then you believe in it?
Once in a while, I guess.
So having a logical basis for something doesn't even matter?
Come on, I did say once in a while, didn't I? If there's a logical explanation for something, then I'll believe it. But if there isn't one,
We'll choose the most romantic option?
Pretty much. With a blank look on his face, Uni gazed absent-mindedly at the feather in his palm. He was utterly still, as if his soul had gone somewhere else. Place.
Hey, Kokron, is it alright if I keep this feather?
His eyes were downcast, only his lips were moving. Sure, but what are you going to do with it?
It'll be a memento.
Memento? When I asked that, Uni raised his head.
Yes, a memento. So that I don't ever forget that I met Kokron.
It surprised me how he said those words so casually. It must have been his age. The brutal, straightforward frankness that boys my age just don't possess. Or rather, that they gradually lose with age. Uni still hasn't lost that gift. If Uni had been 7 years older, that short exchange of words would have left me so embarrassed and flustered that I'd have to stand up from my seat to cool off. Because those simple words would have been so incredibly romantic. But right now, I simply choose to say, "Aw, how cute!" Without warning, I hugged Uni and messed up his smooth hair with my hands.
I can't breathe. I'm dying. Seriously, I'm dying here. And more importantly, my glasses. You'll break my glasses. They'll break, I'm telling you, they'll break. Save me, anyone, stewardess.
Uni struggled like a cute little woodland creature in my arms.
There was a snowstorm outside. The snowstorm was so strong, I had to lean with my hand against the wall to keep standing upright. I used my other hand to shield my eyes from the wind and the snow. It was freezing. I almost strained my eyes trying to stare across the distance. I couldn't see anything. The entire landscape before me had been whited out. A pure white world where all depths was lost. It snatched away my sense of perspective, and I suddenly lost my footing and slipped. I clung to the wall with both hands to regain my balance. The clock tower was over 15 meters tall. If I were to fall from that height, I'd be very lucky if I were to get away with just a few broken bones. I glanced downward. My field of vision was filled with whirling plumes of snow and the needle-like tracks it left as it blew across the roof. Lovely lit weather we're having. The words of cynicism I spouted out were quickly carried away with the wind. There, in the freezing cold, I checked the time. I've never liked having anything attached to my arm, so my wristwatch was hidden away in my pocket. My eyes turned towards the panel of the digital watch. It's almost 4 p.m. It's almost time. I raised my eyes to the dark, restless sky. For an instant, a pale light cut through the heavens. The sound of the winter thunders shook my body to its core. The weather continued to worsen. There were no signs of the snowstorm easing up at any time soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are currently experiencing some turbulence and kindly request that all passengers return to their seats and fasten their seatbelts. We'll be filling the tremors for the turbulence in just a little while, but please rest assured this will not affect the safety of the flight.
Uni neither noticed the seatbelt sign nor paid any attention to the captain's announcement. He was next to me, completely immersed in play fighting with a plush polar bear.
You are! Brazilian high kick! Brazilian high kick! A Brazilian high kick! It can only be Armada con Martello!
I fastened a seatbelt for him. Even then, Uni continued to play without paying any attention to me. Well, I guess he's fine. I thought I'd be alright to leave him as he was. There was something I wanted to do before we landed. I took out a thick file from my bag. I fastened my own seatbelt and laid the file in my lap. The cover read, Awazumi Municipal Hospital Indiscriminate Murder Case File. I opened it to the first page. Wednesday, January 14th, 2009. This gruesome incident had taken place in the winter of 2009, 2 years ago. The scene of this tragedy was Awazumi Municipal Hospital in Hokkaido. It was a 300-bed facility, well known as the most reliable general hospital in that area. The time was 4 a.m. Powdery snow fluttered down from the pitch-black night sky. Dawn was still a long way off, and the neighborhood was deserted and silent as death. Only the whispering of the falling snow, reverberating from somewhere far away, broke the perfect silence. The figure of a lone girl had appeared at the front gate of the city hospital. She was not holding an umbrella. The powdery snow fell softly onto her shoulders and hair. She was as silent as at the world around her. An on-duty nurse noticed this strange figure from the window of the third floor. The nurse thought that there might have been an emergency and quickly rushed down toward the main gate, but once she got there, her figure was nowhere to be seen. The hospital was sound asleep. There was no one groaning in agony, no one weeping in despair. Only the faint sounds of calm and tranquil sleep filled the cool hallways. The sharp shriek had violated the silence. That's when it all began. The only voices that could be heard thereafter were agonized, dying screams. and then everything lapsed again into silence. It took the doctors and nurses several minutes to notice that something was wrong. The nurse call signs lit up one by one, and then the alarm sounded, echoing throughout the hospital. The on-duty doctors split up and rushed to the sick rooms. Screams and cries echoed here and there, from room to room, from ward to ward, one after another. The patients rushed out of their rooms barefoot. They ran, jumbled together, trying to escape, making incomprehensible sounds. A sobbing girl, a ranting and raving young man, an old woman who stood stock still, covered in blood. In the twinkling of an eye, the hospital fell into a state of panic resembling purgatory. A lone doctor opened up the door to one of the hospital rooms. An incredible amount of fresh blood stained the walls and the linoleum floor crimson. A thin mist of spattered blood hung in the air. The sickening, persistent odor made its way to the doctor's nose and settled itself deep in his lungs. The doctor instinctively covered his mouth. Two motionless lumps of flesh lay there, sprawled over the beds. One had its chest brutally torn open. The right half of the rib cage was sticking out from the body cavity. The heart was gone. He found it in the corner of the room, squished flat like a frog that had been run over by a truck, as if someone had hurled it at the wall in a fit of rage. The heart had left a vivid streak of bright red on the milky white wall as it slid its way down to the floor. Suddenly, someone grabbed the doctor's leg. It was another male patient. The patient's throat had been slashed open. The weak, rasping sound of air escaping from the wound could be heard. Shocked, the doctor knelt down and firmly covered the patient's neck with his hands.
The shadow has come.
Those would be the last words he'd ever say. To this day, no one has yet been able to determine what those words really meant. According to the report, the first murder occurred near the entrance to the emergency wards. The victim was a male security guard. He was most likely killed trying to detain the perpetrator who had invaded the hospital. Therefore, the perpetrator went from one hospital room to the other, indiscriminately slaughtering patients along the way. The patients listed as murdered even included an elementary student. The patients, however, were not the perpetrator's only victims. The doctors and nurses who attempted capture were also stabbed. The final casualty count was 12 dead, 19 wounded. The final criminal act was committed 30 minutes after the first victim was murdered. The perpetrator was cornered by the police on the rooftop and arrested. The murder weapon was described as a large pair of industrial scissors. To be precise, it was only half of a pair of pinking shears. The perpetrator used only one of the blades to commit the murders. The other blade was never found, even after a thorough search carried out by the police at the hospital and the perpetrator's home. The motive for the crime remains unknown. While in custody, the perpetrator remained silent throughout the whole of the investigation, never responding to the questions of the police or public prosecutors. However, a single phrase alone was spoken, one which could be considered something of a clue. Right before her arrest, she had muttered something as she dropped her blood-stained blade. Where is self? Those were the details of the Awazumi Municipal Hospital indiscriminate murder case. Her name was Inubishi Kiko. Her age at the time of the incident, 17. She was 19 now. Even though she was a minor, a crime so brutal would normally result in a severe penalty, which she could have no way of avoiding. However, her circumstances differed from the norm. In the end, she was found innocent. The final verdict of the administration of justice stated that Inabishi Kiko was suffering from DID, dissociative identity or disorder. That is to say, multiple personalities. Penal Code Article 39. 1. Those suffering from insanity will not be prosecuted. 2. Those who are mentally handicapped will receive a lighter sentence. She is currently being held for observation at a certain medical facility. Specified psychiatric hospital for isolation and aegis. Alias Sophia. Sophia. Thank you. That is my journey's destination. I got on this plane for the purpose of meeting her. Inabishi Kiko. No matter how many times I read that file, it always makes me shiver inside. I guess if you choose to major in criminal psychology, it'd be necessary to accept the reality of what happened objectively and calmly. But the emotions that were burning within my chest weren't something I could easily suppress. Without any hesitation, that girl had killed many innocent people in the cruelest, most perverse ways imaginable. She had even taken the lives of innocent children who had never harmed a single soul. No matter how crazy she was, I just couldn't bring myself to forgive her for what she had done. To be honest, I was filled with an intense hatred for Inabishi Keiko.
Doo-doo, bakan, zuba baba booba hee.
The elementary school student murdered back then was just 9 years old. If he were still alive, he'd be around Uni's age now. That thought made my chest tighten as I watched Uni play on innocently.
In the corner of the room, engulfed in darkness, a young girl sat on the floor, hugging her knees. Her tiny back trembled ever so slightly. She was sobbing quietly. A young boy put his hand on her shoulder. She glanced up at the boy with her tear-filled eyes and flung herself into his arms, embracing him tightly as if afraid he'd disappear the moment she let go.
I'm scared. I'm so scared.
She kept crying as she held on to him with all her strength. The boy gently ran his fingers through her hair. "It's okay," he whispered softly into her ear. "There's nothing to be afraid of, because no matter what happens, I'll be here to protect you."
No, that's not it.
The words left her trembling lips as she nervously shook her head.
What I'm afraid of is myself. The person I'm afraid of is myself.
"Still, I will protect you forever, you'll see."
That's impossible. There's no way you could. Because I'll...
Her slender fingers dug deep into the boy's back.
I'll kill you too.
Psycho.
Abruptly, there was an unexpected noise, and then the inside of the plane lost gravity. The file on my lap slowly floated into the air before me, pages fluttering as it took off, as if to take off, and then fell from midair with a thud, as though tired and grasping for air. But before it could recover, the file crashed abruptly to my feet. The plane felt like it was drifting on ice. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, the plane was once again pulled down with a frightening strength, as if it wanted to take us down into the bowels of the earth. Screams could be heard from every direction whenever the cabin shook. and mingled with the screams, an undercurrent of fear saturated the air.
Kokoron, I'm scared.
Uni clung tightly to my chest. I placed my arm around his shoulder and tried to calm him down. You know what? Last year, over a period of just 365 days, do you know how many people died in traffic accidents in Japan? Nearly 1,000. Earthquakes, typhoons, lightning bolts, and avalanches took 128 lives. The number of people who die every year from accidents at sea is over 1,000. The average number of people that are murdered is 1,250. So, compared to that, the chances of an airplane getting in an accident and crashing are 0.0001%. Do you understand what that means, Unicun? In short, being in the air is much safer than staying down on the ground. Well, did that calm you down? Uni didn't reply. He simply buried his face in my chest as he trembled all over.
The bell of the clock tower echoed solemnly. I checked my wristwatch. Just around 4 o'clock. The clock tower told the time with not a minute of deviation. A metallic sound that was like the coarse voice of an aged man alerted me of the hour at hand. The snow danced violently to the sound of the bell as the raging winds stirred it. But what I saw were twinkling and sparkling particles of light, an infinite number of angels dancing and rejoicing at the advent of a great gospel. Just wait. Just a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer until you... A bolt of lightning streaked across the ominous sky. The sound of the holy bell was denied by a roar filled with rage. The thunder continued, resounding in succession, 2 times, 3 times, and the earth shook in unison each time, letting out a hateful groan. The flashes illuminated the sky with pale light. Then, a shadow that I couldn't miss appeared in the light. The shadow came up from behind me and stretched toward my feet. Who's there?
The cabin of the plane pitched violently back and forth, as if giant waves were making sport of a small boat. The passengers, powerless to do anything, let out pitiful screams. In the midst of it were voices crying, voices screaming, voices praying. I looked out the window. I wondered when we had fallen to our current altitude. The world outside had turned a muddled gray. The tips of the airline's wings went beyond the fog, covering my field of vision. The wings were now bended inward like a huge bow might, looking as if they could break off any second.
Break.
Or break off any second.
What are we going to bring to?
I quickly pulled Uni off me. I pushed him into his seat and tightened his seatbelt with all my strength. In case something happens, curl up like this, the way a pill bug does, okay?
In case something happens, what something? Is this airplane gonna crash?
It's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright, but just to be safe, okay?
No! I'm scared. Kokoron!
Uni clung tightly to me once more. I forcefully pushed his fingers, or his shoulders, back against his seat and tried to calm him down again. Unicun, do Oni-chan a favor and please listen to what she says. Just stay there and don't leave your seat, understand?
Why? Why can't I? Kokoron, are you going somewhere? Don't leave me all alone.
Don't be silly, I'm not going anywhere. Hey, even if I wanted to, there's nowhere else I can go now, right?
But...
Come on, be a man. Don't you start crying on me like that. Look, I'll hold your hand, just like I promised, okay? I firmly clenched Uni's hand. Large teardrops tumbled from Uni's watery eyes. For an instant, a flash of lightning rushed through the sky outside the window. A thunderous snapping, crunching roar followed. I reflexively turned my eyes downward. The file was at my feet. The white page before my eyes was illuminated by the lightning.
Who's there? I turned around, saying this as forcefully as I could. There was the faint shadow of a person in front of the door. However, the fierce wind and the dancing snow prevented me from seeing who it was. Even the silhouette was impossible to make out through the thick white curtain of snow. Who is it? I called out once again. The shadow gave no answer. It was slowly moving closer. A feeling of fear and distress began to grow inside of me. I was backed up into a corner of the roof by the mysterious shadow as it slowly drew nearer and nearer. The shadow didn't stop. Lightning bolts glittered in the distance like flames. The well-honed blades struck the earth. A silhouette could be made out of the backlight. In that instant, I finally figured out what that shadow really was. It was Sonic.
Reeling from the greatest shock yet, the airplane sunk rapidly. By now it was clear. The crew had no control over the plane. The small craft lost its balance completely, writhing and twisting like a snake. The lights had died, darkness was all around. The sounds of shrieks and screams stabbed at my ears. A maddened passenger began screaming. A strong jet of air could be felt blowing in from somewhere. The sense of oil penetrated my nose. And the next moment...
Before I noticed, I was dancing in the air, released from all restraints. Time stops. The snowstorm stops. And I am swallowed by the pure white world. The particles of light dance around me. The sound of the bell still reverberates in the air, as if it was reciting the beginning of a solemn ritual. Divinely, gently, ever so softly, I start to dissolve within the light. All my senses are disappearing. My vision is gone. As if it were being slowly peeled away, my consciousness departs me, a deep sleep I came to know long ago. My existence, I am now here.
An explosion roared from a rift in the port side. In an instant, the aircraft was engulfed by raging flames. An ivory-colored mask fell from the ceiling, slowly swinging back and forth like the lifeless body of a convict who'd just been executed. This might be the end. I tried to accept my coming fate. However, in my right hand there was a small palm, strongly, desperately calling for me. Even if it's only him that survives, I have to protect him. I won't let this warmth disappear from the world. Get down! I rapidly pulled the oxygen mask over Uni's face and forcefully pushed his head down to his knees.
Kokoron, I'm scared! Save me, Kokoron! I don't want to die!
Our altitude continued to drop. The airplane struggled violently in the last-ditch effort at resistance. By now, the flames had reached the inside of the cabin and, sadistically licking the ceiling, drew ever closer to our heads. It's gonna be all right, trust me. I'll definitely protect you. I held Uni's hand tightly.
He did. Oh, he fell off the clock tower.
That hurt.
Labyrinth of memories that is killing me. What does that mean? Alright, we're gonna stop it here. We haven't played past this point, so next time it'll be all new to us and we will have no idea what's going on. Right?
Right.
So,
It'll be
thanks for.
interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what's gonna happen.
Right. See what happened with the plane crash and see what happened with the dude falling off the building. We'll find out next time. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like and you can comment. If there's any other visual novels you want us to play, let us know in the comment section below. And that's so have a good day. Bye. She says bye too.